guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about VCT APAC, East Asia, not APAC, last chance qualifier. We're going to do some quick, just some quick stuff about the games, and then I'll go very quickly into the actual controversy that's really important that I've already got the clip loaded up for, and it's right here. It's super important. I think you guys really need to look at it because I think Northeption could be disqualified. Super deep, and it's crossed games, really deep, really important. But we'll start with Edward Gaming versus OONs on Slayers. This game was really interesting for multiple reasons. Partially for me because I hadn't seen much of China and I thought the EDG would not be too dominant because I just assumed the Korean region was stronger based on my experience in Rainbow Six, where China doesn't do anything and Korea is really strong. When I first saw this, I thought the map pool was really weird because Icebox is obviously a permaban in Korea, and why the fuck would you take EDG to their strongest map? It's worth mentioning that ONS have lost Zumbo and King, who are really strong, and supposedly behind the scenes, EDG is like the only team that can beat PP Rex and DRX in Asia. Fracture was an EDG win. Kong Kong fragged out as you'd expect. EDG were loving to play for retake and they were really good at it. EDG even used proper timeouts, which is a really rare thing in Valorant and esports in general right now. I really like the look of Life. I think he's a really solid player. He was getting solid impact frags. One thing I would say is that Onslayers kept randomly dry peeking into EDG, whilst EDG got a lot of duo peek, got a lot of utility that allowed the players like Kong Kong to frag out. Kong Kong playing super aggressive was way too big dicked for Onslayers. Honestly, I think Onslayers looked slightly unprepared for EDG on Fracture and they got completely punished. Icebox, I could say lots of things about how EDG looked like a traditional Brazilian FPS team with their super free, loose playstyle that cost them a few rounds, but ultimately just meant it looked like EDG were always going to win. Um, but really, all you have to do is question why Onslayers took EDG to this map. Like, Onslayers are from Korea, which is a region that doesn't really play Icebox because they had a really strong team. They had a team, I think it was Damon, were really strong on it. Um, I guess you can say EDG lost to K1 on it, but I still think it's dodgy that EDG actually play this map. So why would you take them here? Also, I think nobody popped off. Um, Honestly, all of EGG looked really solid. One thing I would say was the Killjoy on Onslayers was completely useless because on attack they used her ult in a way that just basically allowed EDG to play how they wanted, but with less utility available for Onslayers. So that was a bit whack. In conclusion, I think EDG can look to qualify, whilst Onslayers are going to need to recover, but I don't think they'll really compete for any sort of qualification. In all honesty, I think they'll lose to Mara Gaming, and I'll touch on this later when I talk about my predictions for the next rounds. Mario Gaming versus Reject. This was a really big upset for me. I think the only thing I really knew about these two teams was that Zhonghai was the GOAT. Um, in terms of map pool, I guess you have to say why were Koreans continuing to pick Icebox when it's not something their region does. Split was an interesting choice because it was a decent map for Maru, but it's leaving the map pool, and so there's not going to be much innovation on it. So I guess it's like simultaneously comfort, but they're also not practicing it, so it's probably not that much comfort. A lot of people thought that Rejects were the weakest team coming into this tournament. I saw them as having a little bit of a chance, especially with the Reject team that exists in R6, where they had 0 impact. They were really bad in stage 1, and then they had one roster change, and they became the 4th strongest team in APAC North. Whereas I saw Reject with their 2 changes, with Anthem and Intro coming in, which I thought were really good changes, really exciting. I thought that they actually now stood a chance. Well, I didn't know too much about Anthem, but I thought intro was really exciting, and I thought they'd do their scouting pretty well for Anthem. So yeah, I thought this was pretty exciting. Split Reject won. Maru made lots of changes. I don't know too much why, but it was quite interesting. Neither side was particularly comfortable in the first half, and I think that's reflected by the 7-5 score. Rater and Takashi were really good at picking up kills. I think Medusa slightly underperformed. He was definitely overthinking at the start of the game and playing with a bit too much respect for his opponents. Um, I wasn't expecting too much from Reject after the first map because Maru do tend to start slow. And although Anthem was really strong and Medusa improved on defense, and on defense Reject started snowballing, it sort of Mario just starts slow, so I wasn't too concerned or like too worried that this was going to be an easy win for Reject, even though I would rather see Reject win because I speak Japanese or I'm learning Japanese. On Icebox, again, why would you take any team to Icebox when your region doesn't play it? But both teams look less clean and less coordinated, but I think Reject sort of thrives in that chaos. And this was just a momentum-based map where I think personally Reject were always going to win it, especially after their 9-3 half, even though there is the 9-3 curse that I don't really believe in. So yeah, Crazy Raccoon versus Damwon, which was expected to be the closest game and series, and was the closest series. Um, I think all the maps were sort of comfort picks for both teams, but Damwon don't necessarily have the best record on Ascent. The Damwon roster change forced a few players to switch roles. Esperanza on Omen, for example, Exi on KO, Texture on Jet in place of the Chamber, although the Jet Chamber switch meant that Texture could play more aggro and get tons of picks, and he really didn't thrive as well on Chamber in the later series, in the later games. Um, One thing that's worth noticing is I think Damwon were much stronger as in terms of almost all aspects of the game, but they somehow weren't able to pick up so many. Like they picked up a lot of rounds in the first half, but they weren't able to like absolutely destroy. Like this was the only map they were able to absolutely destroy Crazy Raccoon on. I think May was an absolute Chad. He played really really strong. They got a bit of momentum in the second half, but they lost round 4 after even picking up the bonus, which I think was a bit disappointing. Damon tried to play with a bit more speed when on attack than Crazy Raccoon, which meant they didn't get stalled out. Crazy Raccoon were kind of like Vitality in R6 in the old days, where they took forever trying to gain intel and work out what they were going to do, and it meant that they just sort of ran out of time and then had to rush into sight. Whereas Damwon just sort of rushed into sight, but the impact and results of this gameplay was basically the same for both sides. Um, I think realistically, Crazy Raccoon just didn't have the aim to compete with Damwon on this map, but which is really interesting when you go to Bind, because on Bind, Crazy Raccoon were able to win so many rounds and just have individual pop-offs with Neff popping off of the Bucky on round 5 and getting a 4K, Rion popping off a ton, Neff popping off in round 12 to save the 7-5 half. Both teams looked better on defense. Um, May was having a not as good game, and Astel hadn't really improved from his 2-12 half in the first half of Ascent. Um, but yeah, they were really good in this map. I think honestly they just looked that they had more clutch ability and they were better at managing their economy. Split, finally a third map, the only third map of this round of the tournament. Which I think is quite surprising actually. I thought there'd be quite a few 2-1s. I thought Maru would beat Reject 2-1, for example. I thought Northeption would probably beat K1 2-1. Neither team could get too much momentum. Crazy Raccoon were forced to take a timeout after 6 rounds, and the fact that they couldn't get anything going on defense, which looked to be their stronger side in the first half, was pretty concerning. Um, but neither team could properly steal momentum, and somehow it ended up going to overtime, which I thought was really surprising. Damon were much more efficient and were really solid at getting their plants down. I think Crazy Raccoon kind of got an undeserved win, but it was super close, and I'm kind of happy that Korea is in the mud in this tournament right now. As a conclusion, I think Crazy Raccoon are really solid with shotguns and good at pulling rounds out their asses. But I think Damwon are better in terms of macro understanding, coordination, and fragging. But I think the fact that Damwon still failed to win enough rounds to win the game shows a potential lack of performance and perhaps implies that Crazy Raccoon has much more potential because macro and coordination is something that can be taught, but like the ability to just randomly clutch rounds is not really something that can be taught, at least in my experience. So yeah. Now we get on to Northeption and K1. I had no clue what to expect of this. I didn't think Northeption were particularly the strongest team in Japan, despite having won stage 2 or split 2 or whatever they call it. Um, I didn't really know what to expect from K1 because they'd taken a game with Ed Gaming, but I still didn't know too much. I've had to miss the second game because of work, so I don't know what happened with that. But my pre-game assumptions were I expected Northeption to win and build off of what they learned at VCT Masters, but realistically, I thought they could lose because I didn't see them as the strongest team from Japan. I didn't know how strong K1 were, but they seemed kind of momentum based and like completely reliant on their aim and what's his name, Nine Body. Um, Although they were talking shit and about the results in scrims, like particularly against Northeption, so I thought maybe they'd have a good solid chance. Havens, In3, Jojo, pretty much all of them fragged out. Northeption are playing what I call the CCI plant style after Goga, who just went in on G2 to just constantly plant. Northeption won 13-1, but that isn't the big topic. The big topic is that I think Northeption should get banned. And I'm going to show you here why I think they should get banned. We're just going to have to watch this gameplay. I think you should watch the Killjoy, Darioli, really closely because he is the reason why they should get banned. I'll explain why after you see the action. It's seriously sickening. Oh no, it's not. Sorry, it's them three. The this guy. Did you see that? Let me re-show you the gameplay at a slower speed so you guys can understand. I mean, look at that. He's teabagging. That's disgusting behavior. Um, for those that don't understand, a team was disqualified in Apex Legends from a tournament because one of their players teabagged a teammate, and two players from Valorant Game Changers, VCT Game Changers, were banned for complaining that comparing sexual assault and sexual abuse to or SA to teabagging to SA is not suitable and not fit and doesn't work. So I think it's quite hilarious that Northeption won't get banned, but these individuals will be. Obviously, Apex and VCT are completely separate, but still, I think it's slightly dodgy that Dormoa and the other girl got banned from Game Changers. Um, so yeah, Matt 2, I don't know what happened. I imagine Northeption probably played with a bit more freedom and threw away a few more rounds. So let's talk about the next round. So, wait, what? Okay, so it goes lower round one and then upper bracket semifinals as you'd expect, back to back. In terms of lower round one, I expect Mario Gaming to be on Slayers 2-1. I think, honestly, I think Jonghee, Chibab were playing really solid. Nachi was playing pretty well against Reject despite them losing 2-0. Moves and Winks were a bit less consistent, but I still think they played well enough to win a game. Whereas I have no faith in this Onslayers roster. Um, I didn't really see any players standing out. I thought they were all pretty weak. So I have no expectations for this roster. Down 1 K1. I think K1 is going to take a lot from them to cover. I don't think Ninebody played as well as he could. I don't think any of their players played particularly well. Damwon, I'm not even sure who I'd say played. Well, Texture, like I think Damwon definitely have an advantage mechanically and individually, but I think if Ninebody plays his best game, I think there is totally a chance for K1 to steal this. I think if Damwon win, it will be a 2-0. I think if K1 win, it will be a 2-1. In terms of, sorry, I don't think I did score for Maru versus Onslayers. I think it will just be a 2-0 for Maru. I don't see Onslayers playing particularly well. I think the King and what's his name? What's his name? King and Zumba. I think the loss of those two players was really big for Golden Slayers, and I think they're just not a very solid team anymore. EDG versus Reject. Reject were pretty good. I think though we're gonna need to see a step up from Medusa and a step up from the whole team, but particularly Medusa if they want to beat Edward Gaming. I think Epic Gaming have a lot of solid gameplay. I think Kong Kong is a really solid player, and I think Life. I really like seeing Life and Nobody play as well. I think Epic Gaming gonna win. I think it's gonna probably be a 2-0, but I'd love to see Reject win as a Japanese fan. But so yeah, Crazy Raccoon versus Northeption. I think this one is really hard because I'd rather see Crazy Raccoon win, but I think Estelle's going to need to seriously step up. And I think the team as a whole is going to need to step up because they didn't look too convincing against Damwon, especially when you compare it with Northeption, who looked really, really solid. Jojo and Meteor were pretty solid. Zen 3 and Darieli and Blackwiz were decent rocks for them to play off. Well, particularly Jojo to play off. I think Northeption will probably win. I'm going to say 2-1, even though I expect it will probably be a 2-0 to Northeption, because Grace Raccoon are just really solid at pulling wins out of their asses. If you want to see more about the essay and teabagging, I recommend Moist Critical series of videos. He covered it really thoroughly, and I think he did a seriously good job of covering it. That's about it. Don't have much more to say. I hope you enjoy the video, and if you feel like subscribing, feel free to subscribe. Yeah, see ya.